As that beautiful time of year creeps around, the winter solstice, also known as midwinter or Yule, it's a great time to snuggle at home, do some inner work, and get your essential oils out. So today we're going to explore aromatherapy that connects deeply with the roots of Yule. Joining me today is Liz. How are you today, Liz?
I'm cold is the answer to that. It's really early morning in the shed and the temperature has really dropped down. So it's really nice to have the candles going and hopefully you can't see too much of my breath as I speak.
And this is the fun thing about being in different hemispheres. You were commenting just before we started recording as well that we're actually heading towards Letha or midsummer or the summer solstice here in a couple of weeks in the southern hemisphere. But I guess I'm pre-planning for June next year when we actually have our Yule then.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, for you, has Yule become a bit of a tradition each year and there's different things that you like to do and certain essential oils that resonate with this time of year?
Well, remember that I was brought up in a pagan household, so we always had Yule, but we also celebrated Christmas, even though we weren't a Christian family. So we always had the Christmas tree. But I've always loved the fact that we bring the outside in. And what I like to do is to head down to the churchyards to see if I can find a yew log that's fell off, a yew branch that's fell off the yew trees, because traditionally you would have a Yule log to burn and it would be yew. I love to do that. And so I've become quite a figure that people have like, oh, you found your Yule log this year, carrying a great big wet stick along the street. But it's my favourite tradition, really. But for me, it's come to really signify thinking about peace. And last year we did a lovely ritual for called Activate the Cedars, which was meditating on the cedars of Lebanon for peace in the east, but particularly to protect my friend Nicole Boukalil, who is the UK director, sorry, the NAHA director for NAHA. So this idea of the quiet time and really appreciating the evergreen trees that stay with us through what is considered to be the dead time.
I've shared the story I know in previous episodes where I talk about the creator challenging all the trees to stay awake for 7 days and 7 nights. And at the end of it, the cedar, the juniper, the cypress, the fir, the pine, and the spruce were the only ones that really fulfilled that purpose. And so it's interesting that that they are that only beacon of life in the cold winters, aren't they? And so I love to lean into those essential oils around this time, but also whenever we're having any kind of personal winter as well, just to give us that strength and support.
Yeah, and on my own channel, I'm doing quite a study on these evergreen trees, but I was fascinated to think about birch because there aren't many oils that are from deciduous trees. And it was fascinating to compare and think, well, we're left with these species that predate us by such a long time. And there's a saying that we've always said in our family that the the evergreens were there at your birth, they'll be there at your death, and they've seen everything in between. And this idea that these are the watchers, that they're around you all the time. You will always see them traditionally in mythology to do with protection, and I call them sentinel trees. They're the ones that are aware when everybody else is quiet.
And for a bit of trivia here, there is this tradition of having a Christmas tree, decorating a tree, and it being an evergreen or a conifer tree in the house. People sometimes wonder, and where did that come from? What's that got to do with Christianity and baby Jesus? The answer is not much, really. It's kind of predating that, where trees would be brought into the home more as a pagan celebration for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're releasing the essential oils from that tree into the home during cold and flu season. Perfect use of aromatherapy, but also that the sprites or the elemental beings or the nature spirits that lived within that tree would be protected from the cold as well. And it depends, in different regions of the world where what the kind of ethos behind that is. But I think it's beautiful to know that because when Christianity swept across, especially Europe, they kind of laid their traditions over the top of the pagan ones. And a lot of the time, Christians don't actually know why they're having a Christmas tree or Easter eggs or dressing up on Halloween, do they?
No, and I mean, it's not actually that old a tradition. So if people know the history, we're talking about Queen Victoria's sort of 19th century in England. And her husband, Prince Albert, he was a German man, and they had this tradition to bring in a Christmas tree in their house, but we hadn't had it in England. And he bought a beautiful one to Buckingham Palace, and to no, Osborne House, which is down on the Isle of Wight, which was their sort of the home where they lived, and everybody started copying that. So, particularly in England, it's really quite a recent tradition, but I would say it was the most hallowed of all the traditions, really.
But putting those essential oils, spruces, firs, pines, cedars, and so on, in diffusers and around the house in one way or another is another great way of bringing that energy in, but also bringing in the health benefits during cold and flu season as well, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. There's they're really. I mean, that's the interesting sort of reflection when I was thinking about the the evergreens are the ones that hold the magic, really. They're the ones that have so many essential oils, and that's because they do have to have all these fights through the winter to keep themselves going, and they are subject to pathogens, and insects keep on attacking them through the winter, whereas the others are just left alone. And so they develop really quite big oil ducts around where they hold the resin. So that all of that magic, of course, passes in through distillation. And so they're great for sort of antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, and yeah, like great for if you've got sort of molds in your room and stuff like that as well. Just diffusing, it's just letting tiny molecules just touch your walls, touch the windows, touch the furniture. But my favorite rant at this time of year is, please remember that when you're doing that, cats are not good with conifer oils. They humans have like an enzyme in their liver that helps them to metabolize and break down essential oils and phenols, in particular, like the chemical group phenols. But cats don't have that. So when you've got a diffuser with certain types of essential oils, and really it's kind of all the winter essential oils is where we're thinking about, what happens is the droplets can fall onto their fur and they can lick themselves, and essentially what they're doing is ingesting whole essential oils, a bit like us drinking it. So if you've got sort of any kind of conifer oils or citrus oils or things like cinnamon or clove, all of those will be problematic to your cat. So just be really careful with that when you're diffusing.
Bit of a grim warning, but what I do like, it's taken me just over 110 episodes to get you to actually recommend diffusing. Yes, it's a victory.
No, I'm never going to reflect. I'm never, ever going to recommend it because, do you know, it just really. I was thinking about it the other day. I was reflecting on it. Why don't I like it? So I thought, right, I'm going to sit with one, and I could feel my etheric body's just getting really disturbed. It's too aggressive for me. So I like to use evaporators, but definitely evaporators. And if it doesn't upset you that way, diffusers are fantastic. They're great to change the atmosphere of the room, change the scent in the room, just have like this ambience to change your mood. If you're okay with things like that, I'm not.
No, that's all right. We'll agree to disagree on diffusion and how amazing it is. But I wanted to talk about we've been talking about this tradition of using the evergreens and the conifers. But I want to move over and jump over to Japan for a second because there's another tradition there that I've kind of renovated and turned into an essential oil tradition that I do each year. So when we think of citrus essential oils, we often think of beautiful warm environments like Italy, and the citrus is kind of fruiting in summer and that type of thing. But one variety of citrus known as Yuzu actually does rather well in colder environments like China and Japan. And so there is a tradition in the winter solstice in Japan of taking what is called a yuzu, which is basically they cut out the bits of the fruit and they'll actually take a bath in that. And it's seen to cleanse away the unwanted energy from the past year and create, a vibrant energy and excitement about the year to come. Because in many traditions, the winter solstice night is actually seen as like being New Year's Eve night. It's the beginning of a new solar year. In pagan traditions, that new sun on that day after the longest night is when a new sun god is born, and he continues to get stronger. So I don't know about Europe, but I know in Australia, getting hold of some yuzu is rather difficult in the middle of winter or any time. In fact, here in Australia, but we do have yuzu essential oil, which is beautifully cold pressed from the rind. So what I'll do if I have a bathtub, a couple of drops in the bathtub and enjoy it that way. Or if I don't have that, what I'll do is I'll actually just in the corners of the shower pop a few drops of yuzu essential oil and just allow the steam to carry it up and just allow myself physically, energetically, on all different levels, letting go of the year and going, right, let's bring on the new year. And you could do that on New Year's Eve, but I really like to do it on the winter solstice as well.
Yeah, I do it on New Year's Eve, I have to say, and I put my drops in some honey just because I'm a bit overly cautious with putting citrus oils in the bath. After I put lemon in my bath once and just irritated my whole skin for about 6 weeks, so I'm a little bit overcautious. So I put it in a teaspoon of honey to just dissolve it. But yeah, that for me, that's a New Year's tradition. But you're quite right, actually. New Year is winter solstice, isn't it? In those countries, cleverly done, cleverly done.
Yeah, so that's one thing I'll do the night before. And then the morning after, I take a bit of a European tradition and I renovate this again for an essential oil practice. It is a European tradition of sweeping out the house with a birch broom. And funny that you mentioned birch already. This is seen, birch is a tree that's sacred to Venus. It's really good, especially for getting rid of any hurt, any pain, any suffering from the last year. But I don't have a birch broom. So what do I have? I do have an amazing birch essential oil. So it's not what I would recommend or I would use to diffuse any other time of the year. But on the morning after the winter solstice, I have a diffuser full of birch, diffuse that around and just, do some sweeping and cleaning and energetically cleanse out the house to allow, all the yucky stuff to go to bring in the blessings in that way. So that's another way you can bring plant medicine and renovate it for your essential oils when you can't get hold of those plants.
Yeah, I love that. I do like the idea of a birch broom. I might have to make a birch broom now you've said that. And actually, I've seen people make beech brooms here because beech get tiny, tiny little sort of twiglet branches. And they keep the leaves on even when the leaves die in the winter. So they make really pretty sort of branches in the winter too. So for me, the ultimate winter solstice oil is patchouli. I love the idea that we are kind of, if we are the tree, if we are the sort of the tree outside, then all of our goodness needs to go right down into our roots. Everything else falls and we go right down into our roots. And so that to me is a patchouli lesson, how everything moves, all the energy moves down from the head into the body. And really, this time of year we should be slowing down. As a culture, we get quicker and we think about spending money and we go shopping and we do all the things, but actually we should be slowing down and coming into ourselves. And I think reflecting on what went well, what didn't go well, what do we want rid of? And patchouli is really good for that. And so I like doing a nice anointing oil to do that. But I do have also a diffuser blend for that, Adam. Although this was one that I use for in an evaporator for me. So what I like to do is kind of create the winter presents, if you like, and by that I mean presents as in somebody is present rather than Christmas gifts. And I wanted to create almost like a landscape. So if you walked into the living room, you'd think, oh, it smells a bit like the forest here. So, but the forest, it would be easy to say, okay, so then I just need tree oils. But the scentscape of a forest is so much more than just the trees. And there's the sort of the feeling of the cold on your face, and it's like that kind of the feeling that mint gives you when you have if you cleaned your teeth and your mouth feels all cold. So I want to really kind of conjure that, and also the feeling of the ground, the wetness of the ground as you're walking through, because walk through the forest in the winter solstice here and it does not look like a Christmas card at all. It's a bog.
Sorry to interrupt for just a moment. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Sixth Sense. Now, you're probably getting rather excited about essential oils and you might be tempted to go out and just grab some. But did you know the essential oil world is not regulated and a lot of what it says on the label is not governed by anyone? A fun fact, which is not so fun, is that 75% of all oils that are sold as pure, natural, or organic lavender are not even from a plant. So how do you know what's real? Well, I went looking for that question a long time ago, and I found doTERRA to be a really reliable source of high quality essential oils. They don't just test their oils themselves, but at the end of the process, they have an independent third party verify and double check their oils to make sure that you are getting what nature intended purely from the plant. They also source where nature intended the plants to grow as well. If you want to grab hold of some essential oils from doTERRA, then I offer a discount code, and this is available no matter where you are in the world. Now, I don't want everyone to get essential oils. I want everyone to use essential oils. So when you become one of my customers, you get access to me and my VIP education platforms. Ongoing discounts, ongoing freebies, live classes in all time zones all around the world, and so much more. So if you're interested in getting some essential oils that you know are really from nature, and this is important not only physically, but metaphysically as well, please reach out in the links below.
So, winter winter blend. I don't know if you can see the colours. I'm not sure if I did good colours or not. That's the part of the job I'm really not very good at. But I've called this Forest Evergreen Cycle. As I say, it is a diffuser blend. You could also use it like in a candle. When the candle melts, just put it into the wax. So I'm hoping that I've done all the Latin names and stuff right. So I started with the idea that we could have that cold air on the skin. And I thought wintergreen's nice because it has that strange effect of like almost when you're coming out the cold, you're cold, but then your skin burns. It has that hot and cold sense. So I did 3 drops of wintergreen, 2 drops of Siberian fir needle. And I have to say, I'm just Siberian fir mad at the moment. I've got this beautiful tree in the garden that's spreading everywhere, and I just think it's so beautiful to be around. It's really influencing my oil choices. And 1 drop of patchouli essential oil. And so this is a diffuser blend, so we're not really bothered about maximum dilutions, but just to have them for reference, wintergreen would be 2.4% maximum dilution if you were to use it on the skin. You definitely wouldn't want to use this on the skin if you had any kind of blood clotting disorder or on anticoagulant medications. Siberian fir 3% and patchouli 3%. So both of those are really easy. So you could make this into something for your body if you wanted to, but you would just have to make sure that you put it into 10 ml of carrier oil to be nice and safe. Well, actually 5 ml would do it. So that is my forest evergreen, and this idea that they're remembering that time is not linear, it is cyclical. And so if we're having a time where you said, the dead times in our life where things been very dark and very weary, we can use this at winter solstice, but we can use this at any time to remember that this too shall pass, that I just feel I have to stay grounded. I have to trust that this is a cycle and we will move through it. Very astrological thinking that when my planets have moved, things will start to feel different. Yeah.
I love out of all the conifers there you've chosen Siberian fir because, Siberian fir in its native habitat spends a lot of its time, the majority of its time, covered in snow. And I like to think of snow as almost being the kind of the epitome of white light. Because if we think when snow falls, everything that's old and weak dies, and we use white light to cleanse away the unwanted. And then there's this time of silence when it snows, and then in the spring it melts and brings new life. So snow does the same thing as when we visualize white light, cleansing, introspection, bringing new life in as well. So for that blend, Siberian fir not only brings that snow energy and snow medicine, but also brings that beautiful white light, which helps with that healing and progression and cycles as well.
And I really like the sort of old wisdom about the snow. Do you know the famous wisdom about snow?
No, well, I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Share with us, just in case.
Don't eat the yellow stuff. So, but also don't get pissed. It doesn't help. Yeah,
very, very wise. You're a great sage of wisdom, Liz.
I am. I'm like people. I should write books for people. I should. I'm so
You should write a book one day. Yeah. Now, I believe you've got a few other blends as well.
Well, yes, I do. Two. I've got two. So no, I've got one, two in total. One more blend. So this, I felt like if you were having a Yule celebration, winter solstice ritual, you were working in circle, one of the things that you will want to do is to be able to be more spiritually aware of what's going on, right? So I thought that this is a lovely one. And I'm going to start with talking a little bit about neroli oil. I'm going to go more into neroli oil in one of our later videos about manifesting and about abundance generally. But I think that neroli is one of the lessons of neroli is what you are capable of. So that's why that's in this blend. So I'm not sure I like these colours at all. I have to say they're bugging me, but still. So this is an anointing oil that one could use. We could anoint our third eye, or we could use it as a full body massage or what have you, just to bring these oils to help sharpen our awareness. So I've said, right, use 5 ml of grapeseed carrier oil. I really like grapeseed as a carrier oil. It's very good, for example, if you're doing massage or what have you, because it's got a good slip to it. So that's why you'll see it often in my blends. And then I've gone 3 drops of neroli, 2 drops of clary sage, and 1 drop of cedarwood. So the cedarwood really is the anchor of this blend, given that it's so good at quietening the mind and taking any kind of negative thoughts away. Anybody who suffers from any kind of anxiety or a distraction from in poor thinking, this is a great oil to use. And so choosing which cedarwood can be difficult. I try to consciously stay away from cedarwood atlas these days because I think that there's quite a lot of issues regarding conservation issues and sustainability. So I chose one of the North American cedars, which isn't a cedar, Juniper virginiana, which still has that beautiful quietening nature to the for the brain. I think it's really gorgeous. And then clary sage means clear sight. It's very good for clairvoyance and opening the third eye. And then, as I say, neroli, the reason why I chose that is that idea of being really clear on what you're able to do. So, but I think part of sort of spiritual awareness is trusting that that was something. I just didn't make that up in my head. And even if I did make it up in my head, well, where did that idea come from? And being aware of what you can manifest. If you do use this on your body, be aware that there are oils in there, clary sage specifically, that should not be used in pregnancy. So we would say do not use this in the first 37 weeks of pregnancy or while you're breastfeeding.
Do want to go off on a slight tangent for my own self-interest, and it might interest other people as well, hopefully. You mentioned, obviously, that Atlas cedar is a true cedar, whereas what's commonly known as cedarwood from North America is actually a juniper. Are there any reliable true cedars that are a bit more sustainably sound at this point in time, or is it hard to find a sustainable cedar?
Well, so I think it's important to note that we have to be careful that we're not being too Eurocentric here by sort of dissing things because they're not cedars. Cedar is a word, right? That's it. And it comes from the Greek word kedra, which means power. And so when the settlers went to North America, they landed in Virginia and they saw what they deemed to be enormous, great evergreen trees, and they called them cedars, and it's stuck. But so, are there any reliable cedruses that we can use? Yes, Cedrus deodara, the Himalayan cedar is, and also Cedrus libani, but you don't see it produced very often, but you can get it. But just the Atlas is one that we just need to give a little bit of a rest to at the moment. But Kedra just means tree of power. So a lot of the properties are really similar with the junipers and the thuyas, as long as you are, and actually the cypresses, as long as you are clear on the safety. I don't think we need to be kind of like patriarchal about it, if you like, rather than saying, this is the finest and the best. No, it's just one.
Yeah. I also liked what you're sharing as well about this idea of slowing down in the wintertime. We are lucky here in the Southern Hemisphere that our holiday celebrations all come in the summer solstice, so it aligns energetically a lot better than it does for you in the Northern Hemisphere. But I think, as a species, we've spent so much of our lives living with the cycles of nature. And it's only been the last few generations that have really been able to put ourselves in climate controlled environments and shut out the great outdoors. And that has been to our detriment of our physical, our emotional well-being, as well as our mental and obviously our spiritual as well. So I think the more we can find opportunities as a reminder during winter and around Yule to slow down, this can be a really great thing to do. It's no accident this week that I've chosen to wear the violet t-shirt, because I find that you can almost work with the different festivals and celebrations of the year with the different chakras. And for me, Yule and the winter solstice is a really great time to get back in touch with our crown chakra, because our crown chakra is this time when we go into hibernation and we reconnect with our spirituality. We start to ask the big questions. What am I doing here? What am I meant to be doing here? What's the purpose of life? What am I meant to be doing? What should I do next? And all those types of things. So creating that space to do that. And if we think about what we said before, it's the beginning of the new year. We start with that spiritual insight and that kind of sense of, okay, I get the purposeness of this. And then as we move throughout the year, we then start to work our way through the lower chakras, bringing these thoughts into manifestation as well. So there are some great oils to work with that align with the crown chakra. We've talked about many in previous episodes. Rosemary is great for helping you remember the greater purpose of life. Litsea is a really great cleansing one. Frankincense, of course, is a bit of a traditional one for this time of year. But good old lavender, 101 lavender. It slows us down and encourages us to take a rest. It's really good at stimulating the crown chakra. And sometimes people go, well, hold on, Adam, why is a calming oil stimulating for an energy center? Because how we stimulate and work with the crown chakra is not by doing more, it's by doing less. So I really encourage people to do as I do in the winter solstice and lean in a little bit more to your lavender and allow that slower pace, just like we do around full moon times. Do it around the new sun time as well. Work with your lavender in whatever way that may be, whether it be meditation. You can diffuse it throughout the day. Diffuse it at night, use it obviously in all your nighttime rituals and practices, and just allow it to bring you down a couple of notches and move back in harmony with the pace at which the seasons outside are moving.
I love that. Another couple of oils that I use for crown chakra are blue lotus and osmanthus. But yeah, I think that you're quite right. It's really hard to lean into the crown chakra when you're busy. You do have to come into a quiet space, a quiet place to be able to do that. And actually, I was writing a newsletter for a company yesterday, and I said, I think probably the most important thing to do over these next few days, next few weeks, is to lean into lavender and geranium, just so that you stay calm and enjoy everything that's going on, because there's nothing worse than just getting overwhelmed by the stress of it all. And on the telly it looks all magical, they've got all the lovely candlelight, and you're just fractious and you're so stressed you don't enjoy the holiday day. So just like, essential oils are cumulative. So starting now of like, I'm getting calm, I'm staying calm. I am absolutely going to stay calm. I'm going to enjoy it this year.
I find it really unusual that people cook dinner every single day of their lives, but just cooking one particular dinner on the 25th of December seems to need weeks of preparation and require a whole bunch of stress and arguments as well. But, even going down to the shopping centre, it seems the Black Friday tradition is getting bigger here in Australia, and Christmas shopping hasn't really started, but the shopping centres were crazy and trying to find a parking spot, and people don't know how to walk in straight lines. Lavender and all your other calming oils, osmanthus, blue lotus, frankincense, really nice for just making sure that you can be a centre of peace, amidst it all type of thing. Liz, there's one final question I want to ask you as we wrap up this chat. You said you grew up in a pagan household. I also know that you grew up in a household full of essential oils. Are there any essential oil practices or traditions or even just aromas that kind of take you back to that childhood time that, are really special to you?
No. To be honest, we didn't really. I think this way of using essential oils is kind of new. So Mum would make like a blend that she would use in ritual, but we weren't invited to the ritual. Her circle would be there. We'd be sent to bed, and they'd have their feast and do their ritual, and we come downstairs, and it was done. The next day. So no, but for me, I would say the ritual that we were involved in was bringing the leaves into the house. Yeah.
Beautiful, I love that. Well, hopefully we've given you some ideas on how to dance with the plant kingdom, use your essential oils, and really honor this time of year, whether you're really getting into the different traditions of Yule or whether you just want to make that conscious decision to slow down, because that's what everything else is doing outside in winter as well. We'll be back next week when we dive into how you can magically work with the gifts of Mother Earth in another different way. Until then, take care and blessed be.
Bye-bye.
I'm Elizabeth Ashley, UK Director for the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy and founder of the Aromatic Mystery School, where essential oils meet the deeper, more mystical side of healing. Here you'll explore the spiritual, emotional and energetic dimensions of plants and learn how to weave them into your own rituals and well-being practices. If you're ready to work in a way that nourishes both your soul and your senses, join us at the Aromatic Mystery School. The link's right below.